It hurts financially and hurts emotionally.
A Westfield woman says it wasn't love, it was a perfect illusion. That illusion turned out to be a sophisticated scam.
An 83-year-old widow sends 5 checks totaling $98,547 to a man she has never met, never video called, and never even heard clearly on the phone. And when she finally drives to the address on his business contract, she discovers the entire thing is a lie. The building doesn't exist, and the man she fell in love with was nothing more than a carefully constructed phantom designed to drain her bank account and disappear. And what she told investigators still echoes with raw pain when she said, quote, "I got scammed big time and it hurts."
I was 62, and I told him I was 83 at the time. And he says, age is just a number. I don't care.
It hurts financially. It hurts emotionally. End quote. And if stories like this matter to you, if you want to protect yourself and the people you love from predators hiding behind screens, hit that subscribe button right now, because this channel investigates the scams that are destroying families across America. And the more people who see these stories, the harder it becomes for criminals to operate in the shadows. And this particular case reveals something deeply unsettling about modern romance scams. Something that law enforcement officials confirm is becoming an epidemic because, according to FBI data, complaints about romance scams grew 25% between 2019 and 2021, and these schemes cost Americans nearly $1 billion in 2021 alone. And the reason these scams work so effectively is that they exploit the most universal human need of all.
It got extremely romantic, and he said, "I can't wait to be with you." And I mean, he just drew me in, and I fell in love with it. I fell in love with him.
The need for connection, the need for love, and they specifically target people in their most vulnerable moments. People like Pat Grupos of Westfield, Indiana, who became a widow in 2020 and found herself navigating a world that suddenly felt unbearably lonely. And what happened next is a masterclass in psychological manipulation that every single person watching this video needs to understand, because the tactics used against Pat are the same tactics being deployed right now against thousands of seniors across this country. The story begins sometime after 2020 in Westfield, Indiana, a suburb of Indianapolis, where Pat Grupos was trying to rebuild her life after losing her husband. And like millions of Americans, she turned to a dating website hoping to find companionship, hoping to find someone who might understand what she was going through. And that's when she matched with a man who called himself Lewis. And right from the beginning, Lewis employed what investigators call love bombing, an overwhelming flood of affection and attention designed to create rapid emotional attachment. And when Pat told Lewis,
then he stopped calling, he stopped texting. After about 30 days, when he realized I didn't have any more money, and he asked me to send him pictures, he says, "You're absolutely gorgeous."
She was 83 years old. His response was carefully calculated. He told her, quote, "Age is just a number. I don't care," end quote. And those words weren't romantic. They were strategic. They were designed to eliminate her defenses and make her feel special and desired and seen. And Lewis claimed to be 62 years old and working for a construction company in Montreal, Canada. And here's where the first red flag appeared that Pat couldn't recognize at the time. Lewis claimed he had been in some kind of accident that made it difficult to understand him on the phone, which conveniently meant that all their communication had to happen through text messages. And he encouraged her to communicate away from the dating website, which is a classic scammer tactic because dating platforms often have fraud
Probably spend 24 hours in bed. I said, now let me know when you arrive so I can come pick you up. And he never did.
Detection systems and scammers want to get their victims onto private channels where there's no oversight and no record. For months, the text messages flowed between them, hundreds of intimate messages that slowly built a world of shared affection and future plans. And one of those messages read, quote, "Good morning, my queen. I hope you had enough rest last night. I pray for blessings and grace. For both of us, I love you." End quote. And Pat described falling completely under his spell, saying, quote, "It got romantic, and he kept saying, he can't wait to be with me. He just drew me in, and I fell in love with him," end quote. And Lewis sent photographs, supposedly of himself, and he asked Pat to send pictures too, telling her she was beautiful. And he made plans to visit her. He even sent her a picture of a plane ticket as supposed proof that he was really coming.
There's a significant increase. So these are very sophisticated operations. A lot of this is offshore. It's very difficult for us to pursue these individuals in foreign entities in foreign countries. They focus on getting the money here, but once it gets offshore, it is very difficult for us to track it and trace it and try to...
And Pat remembers telling him, quote, "Let me know when you arrive so I can come pick you up," end quote. But that arrival never came. And there was always an excuse, always a delay, always something that prevented him from getting on that plane. And this is the cruel rhythm of romance scams, the constant promise of a future meeting that never materializes while the requests for money escalate. Over the course of 6 months, Lewis convinced Pat to send him 5 separate checks, supposedly to help with his construction business. 5 checks that she believed were going to the man she loved, the man she was planning to build a future with. And the total amount she sent was $98,547. And when asked what she thinks, when she sees that total, Pat said, quote, "It makes me ill. I just want to throw up that I was that gullible," end quote. And there's something important that needs to be said here. Pat is not stupid. Pat is not foolish. Pat is a human being who experienced profound loss and reached out for connection and encountered a predator who had practiced these techniques on countless victims before her. These scammers are professionals. They understand human psychology better than most therapists, and they exploit grief and loneliness with surgical precision. The discovery moment came when Lewis sent Pat a contract asking her to invest $500,000 in his business, and this contract listed an address in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and something finally triggered Pat's suspicion. Maybe it was the size of the request. Maybe it was the fact that he claimed to work in Montreal, but his business was supposedly registered in Indiana. Public reporting doesn't say exactly what made her suspicious, but Pat did something that saved her from losing even more money. She actually drove to that Fort Wayne address to check it out in person. And when she arrived, she discovered the address was bogus. There was no construction company. There was no Lewis. There was nothing but the crushing realization that everything had been a lie. And after that confrontation with reality, something predictable happened. When Lewis realized Pat wasn't going to send any more money, he disappeared. Quote, "He stopped calling, stopped texting after about 30 days when he realized I didn't have any more money." End quote. And that's perhaps the most revealing detail of all. The moment the money stopped flowing, the romance evaporated, which proves it was never about love. It was always about money. Pat's family filed complaints on her behalf with Westfield police and the FBI, and when reached out to Westfield police, the assistant chief stated, quote, "I've asked our criminal investigations division to assess this report and determine if additional investigative actions are warranted," end quote. But here's the harsh reality that Scott Barnhart, the Director of Consumer Protection at the Indiana Attorney General's office, explained. These operations are extremely difficult to prosecute because they're sophisticated and often based offshore. He said, quote, "A lot of this is offshore. It's very difficult for us to pursue these individuals in foreign entities and foreign countries. They focus on getting the money here, but once it gets offshore, it's very difficult for us to track it and trace it and try to catch the bad guys," end quote. And that's the infuriating truth about romance scams. The criminals operate from jurisdictions where American law enforcement has no reach, and the money once sent is essentially gone forever. Pat isn't confident she'll ever get her money back, and statistically, she's probably right. But she wanted her story told because she hopes it will protect others. And when asked if she thinks she'll find love again, she showed remarkable resilience, saying yes, but adding, quote, "never be scammed again," end quote. And that determination, that refusal to let this experience define her, is something worth admiring even in the midst of such a painful story. And if you've watched this far, you understand how important it is to spread awareness about these predatory schemes. So please subscribe to this channel and share this video with anyone in your life who might be vulnerable, with your parents, your grandparents, your neighbors, anyone who might be looking for love online. Because the more people who understand these tactics, the harder it becomes for scammers to operate.